Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to take and make a Fleur De Lis scroll. Now this is just one variant of scroll. We're going to be using some round bar stock and we're going to be using a pre-cut out Fleur De Lis template. Now I have this template over at my website blacksmithpdfs.com. It's a free template amongst many other templates. And if you're interested, there is a template bundle that you can purchase for $3. So, and that will be an all template bundle of all the various templates that I have currently to date. And as I go along, offering more and more little templates like this, I will continue to add them to that list. So it will be a continuing value for you. So right here, we've got our blank cut out. Again, if you want this blank, you can go out and get it, or you can just screenshot this and figure out the measurements yourself. But again, that's over at my website, blacksmithpdfs.com. Link will be down in the description. I'm also working with a piece of 3/8 inch round bar stock, and it is 12 inches long or 300 mil long, and it is 3/8, so that is roughly 10 mil round. So for you all across the pond. So the very first thing that we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and draw out this length of 3/8. So I'll get that in the fire and we'll turn this on, turn the blower on and get that hot. Now as that runs, we're going to start, while that heats up a little bit, we're going to lay this thing out cold. So the way that I like to lay these out is I like to get out a magic marker. And that fire is pretty hot, so we'll just let it soak in there. I like to get out a magic marker, and I like to draw on this piece here. So I like to draw my center vein where I'm going to do it. You can do whatever styling you like, just get an ideal. And then I like to draw in some reference lines like so. Now I'm going to do a fairly simple one because I figure this is easiest for the tutorial, and it won't take you, it won't take me an hour and a half to show you a more decorative or ornate Fleur De Lis. Once we have that done, we are going to go ahead and get a 3-pound saw face hammer, and we're going to use these 1-inch butchers. Now this 1-inch butcher, again, is just 25 mil wide. It's got a butcher. A butcher is anything that has a leading edge. That's the main thing to remember about a butcher. We're going to do it where the butcher's to the outside. That way we're leaving the center, so we're pushing the background away. And if you have any interest in wanting to know how to make these type of chasing tools, that's what they're called, you can go and look in the playlist section on the channel for chasing tools. And I actually have an entire playlist on this very subject, so that you can enjoy to your heart's delight. So now that we've got one side done, we're going to go ahead and work the other side as well. It's going to jump a bit. If you want to put down a hold down tool, that would be good. I'm just trying to do this expediently for the channel. You guys probably can't, you guys won't be able to see what I'm doing here, but I'll bring it up and show you the result here in a second. Again, this bevel is put to the outside, so I'm leaving a section in the center kind of raised. Hopefully y'all can see that just fine. So that's what that looks like. So now I'm going to take a curved butcher, which has an inside curve on the flat side and a radius curve, so it has a convex or a concave surface on the inside for the straight, and then it has a convex surface on the outside for the bevel. We're going to go ahead and set that on there on our mark and give it a big whack. And the reason why we're doing this in cold first is it makes all this easier to follow through and chase up hot. So we do it cold first. That gets our initial mark set in like it needs to be. And that allows us to finish chasing that in hot fairly easily. So now that that's prepped, we'll set that off to the side of the fire. And our 3/8 rod is now warm. Set this down. Get rid of this handy dandy hook rule. Sent to me by a lovely subscriber. I'm going to grab my tongs here, a pair of wolf jaw tongs that I've made. Also have a video on the channel of that, a whole tong section around making tongs. Pretty extensive series on that one, actually. Okay, grab my forging hammer, and here we go. So we're just going to do a simple taper and draw this out. We're going to leave this to be a round taper. All I'm doing is I'm hammering right on the flat of the anvil. There's no need in getting fancy with this. You just want to take and work the thing out to a symmetrical taper if you can. We don't want this to be too tiny. We're just working out roughly a 3-inch taper or a 75 mil taper, if you will. You can work it out if you want it to be a little longer and slenderer. You can go about 4 inches or 100 mil. And we're going to round that all up in this heat. And as you can see, I'm just basically bouncing the hammer. This isn't a forging heat, this is just all cleanup work. So that's what we got on that. Now before I go much further, I'm going to go ahead and leave that flat. We're going to let that sit flat, and I'm going to heat up the other piece. So I have this piece good and hot again. We're going to start with our straight butcher. We're going to lay that directly on the anvil. Pick up our heavier chasing hammer, or soft face hammer if you will. Give that wax right down the sides, and all we're doing is deepening this groove. You don't want to leave a bunch of excess chop marks, so you will have to come back through while this is cooler and kind of planish it out a bit, but that's to be expected. The point is just to get the grooves in there nice and straight if you can, and give it the effect you're looking for and make sure everything's even. So at the colder temperature, we can chase that line in just a little bit more. Now you could get a lot more elaborate with this. You could come in with some planishing tools and you can planish out this area here and give this some radius. You could do a lot of different things with this. We're going to keep it simple for this video demonstration, as I find that'll be best. Let me stick this back in the fire. I'll throw that on. Now that we've got our straight part done, we can put that away, put that chisel away. And now we're going to give it 2 whacks, one on one side, one on the other, with our curved butcher. Once we bring it back up to temp here. We'll sweep this, make sure everything's set up before you bring it out. As this is thin material, it doesn't have really long to heat. I shut off that airflow. People have asked me what type of forging fuel am I working in. Today I'm working in coke. I do a mix now. I'll work in green coal and I'll work in coke. When I work in coke, the blower has to be on to keep the coke fire going better, because you just wear yourself out if you, oh boy, how do you wear yourself out if you're trying to hand crank it. So electric blower is definitely a necessity in my opinion if you're going to do coke. Forging, that is. That almost sounded bad. There was some demonetization that was about to happen on that statement. Anyways, so there you have it. So we've got that so far. Good to go. Now we're going to flip this. We're going to flip this around. We're going to grab it by this end. And I need to take and put a curvature on this after I go ahead and fishtail this out. We need to draw out some wings on this because it's going to be a forge welded design. So we need to take and draw out the wings left and right here. So I'll go ahead and heat that portion up. Turn this blower back on. Obviously I'm done with these, so we're going to get those out of the way. Put those back up on the racks. And I'm going to pull out my small hammer, my small cross peening hammer, because we'll need that here in just a second. This is good and hot. I'm pulling it out. I'm going to use the peen of my larger hammer on the inside face to expand this out and taper it ever so slightly. So the thought process here is we're trying to thin that material out. And then on the next heat, we're going to put it in the crook of the anvil here, and we are going to take and curve this. Now you could do it in this heat, but I'm going to go ahead and heat it up just a little bit more. So this way we can start curving that around. We've got a little bit more curving to do on everything. When I get that warmed up, put my big hammer out of the way. This is the orchestration process of a blacksmith. You want to take your time and do the portions that you need to do and do them well. So we're going to curve that around. Now, essentially what we're doing here in these steps, we're creating what they call a socket weld. So this is going to be a socket weld to the actual scroll work here, to the actual scrolled up piece. And we're going to fit this other bar right to it. So this is going to go to here eventually. And we need some way of crimping that on in order to take and pull off that weld very well. So we've got to get enough material, wings around, that we can grip that and put that in the fire, heat that joint up, and bring it out to a welding temp and go ahead and weld it up. The other thing is you want to go ahead and make sure that you shape your leaf or your Fleur De Lis on here before you do all that, because once it's crimped on there, it makes it a lot more difficult to do the shaping. So we're going to do the shaping here in this next heat. Okay, now that we've got a wood block up here, this is just a simple pine block that you can use, and I've cut a notch in it on one edge. This is a handy little way of shaping these Fleur De Lises here in one plane anyhow. And that gives it that kind of curvature look. Then we can come over here and we can knock the tip up a bit to give it some smoothness. We can come over here, we can knock these tips to give them a little bit of flare outwards. So again, we've got a little bit of curvature all in the right areas. Trust me, this will be very handy for you. So that's what we've done. So we've created a crease this way, hammering this way, and then we've went ahead and hammered out the tips of the Fleur De Lises just to give it a little flare out, to give this a little more flare look to it once it is on the actual scroll. That'll make it look a little bit better. Now we can get rid of that. Whoop. And now it's time to just flip this around and go ahead and clench it down on the other piece. Now also I like to point out at this juncture in time, you guys might not be able to see it on camera, but I can see it pretty well. I turned my back from the fire and I ended up getting just a little bit of burning on one of these edges here, so I had to kind of clean that up, and that's going to create a little bit of headache later that I'll have to clean up. If you get to a place like that and it's not an overly critical step right now, just take the time and go ahead and pitch it and, you know, start over. It gives you more practice and it gives you the chance to offer a much better product. But since this is just a sample piece that I am making up, it's not for a client or anything else, it's just for a demonstration here on YouTube, I'm going to leave that burn mark intact, which is just fine for my purposes. So, all right, so I'm going to put that out of the way. I'm going to throw this, the end that we're supposed to be connecting to the 3/8" round bar, back in the fire, and I'm going to bring it up to heat. Oakley dokley, everyone. So I've put the 3/8 rod that we're going to turn into the scroll back in the fire to get it to kind of have a preheat on it. I've also took the Fleur De Lis, I've brought it up to temperature. So now we're going to take and combine the two elements at hand. We're going to be using our lightweight cross beam hammer. I'm going to be setting it right where I need it to be ultimately. I'm going to drive that down, And then I'm going to rotate this up on edge ever so slightly and give that a knock over and give the other ear a little bit of a knock over. Now you want to try to take and fit this fairly close if you can around the piece, just like that. And now that will hold itself on while we'll bring this up to welding heat. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and make sure that we put a little bit of flux right here at the toe. Right here at the toe, and a little bit on this back side. You don't have to go crazy with your flux. And the only reason why I'm doing this portion here with a little bit of flux is because this type of weld, this particular type of weld, has a tendency to get scale really trapped way back in here. Especially if you hammer up here once and you trap that scale, it's going to become a bad thing. So we want just a little bit of flux on there, just so this way down here where it matters the most, you're not going to have that tendency for that weld to have flux or dirt trapped in there. So just do very lightly on the flux. If you do too much, you'll go ahead and inhibit the weld anyhow, so don't do that. So we're going to go back in the fire. I'm going to rake some good coke up over the top of it here, and we're going to turn this on. Now I'm going to keep the camera rolling right now because it's easier to keep the camera rolling than for me to shut this off and try to do the weld and everything else, because this being such a small piece. So we're going to get this up to temperature, which should be able to happen here fairly quickly. We've got right now we have the Fleur De Lis down in the fire, positioned down, but I'm going to roll that over here in just a moment when I feel that it's heated properly or that it will stay on the bar good enough. I'll roll it ever so slightly over, just so this way that bottom bar can be heating up. You want to be careful with this right now because, again, you can burn up that end or that element. And that's not what we're wanting. We're wanting to just get that bar hot enough that it can weld. Take your time, bring it up to a nice even heat, and then go ahead and make your weld. So while this heats up, I want to thank you all for watching this video. Let me know if you enjoyed it down in the comment section down below. I greatly appreciate that. And also I'd like to thank everybody who watches our videos on the regular basis and makes it this far in the video. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and comment down below. Scrolls sure are pretty. So, scrolls sure are pretty. So now I'm going to reduce the amount of airflow that's going into the fire pot because it's starting to get up to a welding heat. It's going to happen pretty quick. I'm going to come out and I'm going to set the weld. So I'm going to come out with it. I'm going to flip it over and set the weld real quick. I'm going to use a lightweight hammer. We don't need to monkey this thing hard here. So be real careful with it. I've got reduced airflow going in the fire, just enough to wait for that temp to come all the way up. And I'm going to pull it out and we're going to go ahead and give this a little bit of a weld. Okay, back in the fire with it. That's pretty anti-spectacular. A good weld will usually be anti-spectacular. Now you may have seen me multiple times on the channel bring something up to where it was kind of a sparkling heat or starting to really get into that white heat range. That is not needed for welding. You'll see that happen if it's a complex piece or if it's a larger piece and I'm going to grind some off. Just a little bit of additional burning on something will not be that big of a deal, but we do want to take and be very gentle with small pieces. So the weld is a very light welding heat at first when you're doing that, because there's more things that can burn up with these delicate pieces very quickly than with the larger pieces. So letting out less air, this thing's coming up to heat. Bring it up to a much higher heat this time. I think it's there. Bring it out. Gonna work this all the way around, work those lips all the way around and into the joint. Now I'm gonna straighten this up. So that joint is welded now, but I need to blend it in. Be careful with doing too much blending, because since this piece is not thickened at this joint or juncture, there's a tendency to go ahead and thin this too much. We don't want to thin that, create a waste. And for the life of me, I can't find my bucket of flux. I just set it up somewhere and can't find it. So let me put that back in there. Doing a quick look around, still not finding it. Oh well, we don't need it, I'll just let it go. This is what happens when you're in real time. When you're real time in your shop, you have a tendency to lose things, misplace things. And for the life of me on camera, I can't find my little flux bucket. Where I normally set it, I didn't put it there. See, my bad. That's bad orchestration of the process. There it is. All the way on the other side. I was going to sprinkle a little flux on the toe of the scarf just to help it blend in a bit better. But we're not going to do that now. Bring the heat back up. And I'm going to do a little bit of more traditional welding here. Now, one of the other things to mention, this is a great time to break out a swedge block if you had it, and take and weld in that swedge block itself to take and help round out that joint. This is a great time to do that. I'm trying to decide whether I want to do that or not. I'm probably just going to leave it flat on the anvil and just weld it up here, just in case you guys don't have a swedge block, so we'll just do that. A swedge block can be a great handy investment though for this type deal. Bring this up to another full welding heat, and I'm going to kind of finish out rolling that joint over. That's enough. That's really hot. Don't even need it that hot. We're just working that seam up a little closer, welding that in. And that's why I'm just very lightly doing this. We don't need this. We don't need to be wailing on this thing. That's not the point of this weld. So that's good for this portion of that demonstration. Now we're going to go ahead and scroll this whole piece up. And you see I'd have some cleanup work to do on my top portion. That's not as clean as I would like it, so I'd have some definite cleanup work there to do. But now we're ready to take and go ahead and scroll this up. Without that flux there at the toe, you guys can probably see that line. This is a decorative element, so that's okay. This can actually be filed out. The internal portion's welded, so you can file that off. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to scroll this up so I can let you guys get back to whatever you're doing today. So now we're going to heat up the tip back into the leaf. We're running this little demo straight through. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you for all your support on these videos, on this channel. Jessica and I really greatly appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who purchases PDFs and downloads and things like that from us on a regular basis, or even does the PayPal donate button we have over at our website to help support this channel's content. We certainly greatly appreciate that. It really does go a long way to help us out. And we certainly appreciate you. So thank you so much. All right, get rid of that little hammer and time to do some scroll work. We'll pull this out, and just like any other scroll, we're going to start that over that edge. Keep mindfulness of that part that you've already created though, of the Fleur De Lis. You want to be careful of that you don't end up bending it too much or doing anything weird to it. So keep it off the anvil. You don't want to create a flat on it. Create yourself more headache than what it's worth, which can happen very quickly. Now, I'm kind of rushing through this process. If this was something I was going to be doing for a client or on a job, I would take my time and make sure all my welds are blended in nicely. If you're going to be doing this for someone, you guys see how that's going. We're going to go ahead and do just a bit more on this to heat that area up. And we're going to get a little bit more curve to it. We don't want that top Fleur De Lis to just lay on the piece. We want to take and get some separation there, so it almost looks like it's splitting off a little bit. So we need to roll that scroll up just a wee bit more. That way that little leaf is sticking off like it's about to grow off the bar. As soon as I get this up to heat, we'll be good to go. So I'm doing this in real time just because I want you to get kind of a sense of the essence of how much time it takes. Now, if you're not comfortable with your hammer control, sometimes it's just best to just go ahead and what some people call, you know, taking the cheapskate or the easy way out and just use a pair of scrolling tongs to tweak things to where you want them. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to show you how to do it here like it should be done. But don't be afraid to use the technology that exists. So just like that, I'm going to give this just a little bit of a reverse bend, maybe a little bit back the other way. I actually think I liked it pointing a little bit more down. There we go. Give it a tap there, a little tap there. That looks nice. All right, and so there you have it. There's a little Fleur De Lis scroll. This is just one type of scroll that you can do. Practice, play around with this element, see if it's something that you like to try, and add to your work. So that's it for today. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave a like, and let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. As always, God bless you, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.